That's the city. I have batteries. I have batteries. I don't know. They usually do. They don't let me touch it.
Yeah, better. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. So as we get the microphone working, I'll go ahead and start on time. And I'm sure that it will be working just as they
How many?
Two, please.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance.
Test.
I'm Jackie Serla Lippitt,
Sounds
and I'm one of the members of the Rivers Coalition leadership team. There are 5, and only 2 are running the meeting today. We wanted to make sure that we had a meeting today because we have very important things to discuss.
Jeff.
Thank you. So, myself and Daryl will be running the meeting today, which means there'll be more interaction with you. So we have a great speaker today. We have Dr. Edie Witter from ORCA, who will be and she'll be speaking in a moment on human health and the Indian River Lagoon, and what a timely topic for sure. Okay, we'll do a little bit of business before we get started. Could we please have Gerald introduce himself, and then I'd ask Gerald to have members introduce themselves.
This is, microphone doesn't seem to be working very well, but.
It's fine.
Daryl Brandt from Palm Cove Yacht Club.
Charles Grandy, Rivers Coalition Defense Fund and the President's Council.
Edie Witter, ORCA.
Yeah, actually, this would be for members. You're a member.
I'm stealing a good seat.
Where's George? Sure,
That's your reps.
sure. Why don't we just go around the room for members to introduce themselves?
Please stand.
Yep, there you go. There you go. Thank you.
Alan Herskell with Sailfish Point POA. Marty Baum, Indian River Keeper. Right.
Dan Merritt, Seagate Harbor Homeowners Association.
Todd Weissing, Lighthouse Point homeowners.
Kenny Hinkle, President Indian River Keeper, Vice President Rivers Coalition, and co-founder of bullsugar.org, and very loud.
Rich Dickerson, Stuart Flower Artist.
Okay, go ahead, Paul. You don't need the microphone. Okay, you don't need the microphone.
I'm Paul Lara with the Treasure Coast Democratic Environmental Caucus.
Andy Potts, Treasure Coast Rowing Club.
Go ahead.
Dave Carlson, River Vista Homeowners Association.
Jackie Transiger, Martin County Conservation Alliance.
Linda Brand, American Association of University Women.
Marcy Pittman with the Treasure Coast Unitarian Universalist Church.
Guardian Martin Camp.
Joanne Swan, St. Lucie Sailing Club.
Sherry Anker, Conservation Alliance of St. Lucie County.
Sharon Russell, 2780 Paddlers.
Anybody else?
Regina.
Regina Wood from Martin County, Florida Native Plant Society.
We have a quorum. Thank you very much. Since we have one bit of time today, I know this takes a long time, but I am going to ask everybody to introduce themselves. Who hasn't? I think this is important because we need to know who is interested in visiting, and we always have to be growing. We always have to be reaching out to new members. And so for any of you in an organization or not, please invite your neighbors or anybody else you think may be interested. So starting here, you introduce yourself. You did not.
Look out, she's a school teacher.
I'm here because I don't have an office today. I didn't have anywhere else to go. I knew I was going to find some people. And I could, maybe rest my head upon your shoulder. But we're actually looking for some office space. Does anybody have about 4,000 square feet? We've got a deadline in 2 weeks.
This is Blair Wickstrom. Guys, let's introduce yourselves. Shout it out to the crowd.
Dave Young, Treasure Coast Runners, and we breathe in the toxic air when we're running alongside the.
We all breathe.
Absolutely. Sir?
We breathe heavily.
No mic, you're gonna have to shout.
My name is Dan Egan. I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a reporter at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel who covers the Great Lakes. I just wrote a book called Death and Life of the Great Lakes for W.W. Norton, and I'm now working on a book about phosphorus for W.W. Norton.
Rick Hall, River Warrior, among others.
Great. Next, please introduce yourself if you haven't. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Lee Morey, bullsugar.org, and voter guides will be out later today.
Yay. Great.
Eleanor and Tom Deep, residents of Stewart.
Residents of
The
Stewart.
supporters, we've been here for 4 years, we still have a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Norm Olson, Bay Colony Homeowners Association, and I'm also a member of PSL Langlers.
Awesome.
Joyce and Hank Thomason, volunteers for Martin County Ecosystem Restoration and Management.
Awesome.
Jim Skiu, Venture Harbor, and a concerned citizen.
Thank you. This row, Lon?
Lish Butler, concerned citizen, been here in Treasure Coast 49 years.
Unbelievable. Almost 50 years and seen the good and the bad. Who's next? Who hasn't introduced themselves, please?
Beth Gervais, concerned citizen, transplanted from southeastern Wisconsin.
All right.
And volunteer for Ocean Graphic.
Yes. Thank you. Welcome.
Cheryl Cheeves, concerned citizen, living in Montego Cove and recently moved from Missouri.
Wow, welcome. Anyone in this row who is a citizen? Okay, everybody's a
Stay away from the water.
Ice is right outside. I'm
Liz Ann Riva. I'm a member of the DEC, Democratic Executive Committee.
Thank you. Anyone who is, please?
John Snyder with Treasure Coast Classical Academy with community outreach, working to make TCCA our first 100% River Kids friendly school in Martin County.
Thank you, Tony.
Bobby and Walter Deemer, League of Women Voters.
Awesome. Thank you. Next row.
I'm Charles Bradley with the Port St. Lucie Anglers Club.
Thank you. Next row.
Wayne Mills, Chairman of Orca and Saving Florida's Estuaries Coalition.
Newton.
I'm Newton Cook, President of United Waterfowlers of Florida. I'm Chairman of RAC, South Florida Water Management District Recreation Work Group. We're working on 600,000 acres of district land to get all the stakeholders out recreating on that property. Boat, hike, camp, fish, and obviously we're very concerned about conservation.
Thank you. Anybody else in that row who'd like to introduce themselves?
Rob Levy, candidate for Florida State Senate.
Kim Stryver, I'm one of the administrators of the Toxic 18 Facebook group.
Great. Sir?
John Page, Treasure Coast Democratic Environmental Congress.
Thank you.
Bridget Carraway, Treasure Coast Environmental Congress.
Bob Pelosi, live on the west side of Palm City Bay, and I'm thankful that the west winds have blown all the green algae over there. I don't have any.
Thank you.
I'm Douglas Ashley. I'm your resident bench warmer. They moved my bench. It used to be over by the flag, but I've been doing this for 10 years. I live over in Rio.
Thank you. Anybody else who'd like to introduce themselves?
Willie Montes, Treasurer Coast Environmental Program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Pam Hawkins, I run the Water Quality Citizen Science Program at FOS.
I'm a native Floridian, and I live on the water in Palm City, and I'm a member of the Democratic Environmental Caucus.
That's great. Thank you. Anybody else on this side?
William Embry, I'm a full-time hook and line commercial fisherman that's highly been affected by this for a long time. I've actually been a stakeholder.
Thank you. Anyone else on this side? I know this is kind of messy, but if you don't recognize the people that are making this go to higher levels of government, we will never be successful. Anybody else?
Yes, Joe Bandy, I'm running for County Commission District 2, and I'm endorsed by the Democratic and Environmental Caucus. Thank you.
This side over here.
Greg Langowski, Regional Director for U.S. Senator Marco Rubio.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for coming.
Give him a round of applause.
Paul McElroy, 30-year resident and very pissed off resident of Martin.
I'll get you a t-shirt.
Diane Hughes, Martin County Public Works Senior Ecosystem Specialist.
And Greg Nolte, Martin County Public Works, Ecosystem Restoration and Management, Senior Project Manager, and 39-year resident of Martin County.
And Lori Lorch, concerned taxpayer of Martin County.
Thank you.
Jennifer Brand, I'm a resident of Palm Cove Yacht Club, and I live on the C-23 Canal. I'm a 30-year voter and a concerned citizen.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Gallant, 41 years here in Martin County, classmate and childhood friend of Jackie Thurlows, and today I'm representing Congressman Brian Mass.
Becky?
Oh, Becky Bruner, your city commissioner of Stewart.
Good morning, John Addix, also here representing Congressman Brian Mass.
Awesome. Thank you.
Matt Thewald, lifelong resident of Martin County, teacher at Martin County High School, and also candidate for State House District 83.
Robin and Bill Evans, just concerned citizens who live in Palm City.
Thank you very much.
Gal Diaz, concerned citizen.
Thank you. Sherry, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Brian McGann. I'm a resident of the estuary and a concerned citizen.
Thank you so much.
Bruce Osborne, Barbara's husband.
Also known as.
Toby, go ahead.
Toby Overdorf. I'm also a candidate for District 83, and it's interesting that the candidate that's not here, but I'll put that aside. Anyway, Toby Overdorf. I'm a candidate for District 83, and I'm a 23-year resident here.
Thank you, Toby. Welcome. Is there anybody else? Oh, yes, hi.
I'm Dolores Johnson. I'm a candidate for House District 84 in St. Lucie County. I'm president, one of the founding members hospital. About 5 or 6 people came in the hospital from breathing the air. So we're all concerned about this, and I look forward to
I'm Brittany New Bearden. I'm a 4th generation resident of Martin County, and I'm also a member of the Martin County Farm Bureau Board of Directors and a co-chair of the Martin County Young Farmers and Ranchers.
Tyler Treadway, from Stewart News and TC
Anybody else like to introduce him or herself? Yes?
Michael, Joe Giulio, 46-year resident of Martin County, retired wetlands professional, and I have written that stuff about how to solve this problem more than has been done.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Jenny.
I'm Mad.
Great. Again, if I missed you and you'd like to introduce yourself, whether you're a candidate or, it's funny, whether you're a candidate or a person. I was once a candidate. Please feel free to introduce yourself. No, only if you have not spoken so far. Who hasn't introduced themselves? Okay, I don't know. They haven't come forward, so I'm going to go ahead.
Corey.
Let's have a round of applause for Barbara Osborne, who is running for Okay, again, I will say, I know that took a lot of time, but it is the most important thing in the world that we recognize each other and we know all of the diverse backgrounds that we are coming from for one purpose: to save our waterways and especially our St. Lucie River. And if you can today, meet a new person. After the meeting, introduce yourself to somebody you've never talked to before. It's the relationships that will open the doors for new opportunities as we move forward, and we've done a great job. Before I introduce Edie Witter, I'd like to read something that my husband gave me yesterday, and you're probably aware of this, but it kind of hit me on a different level when my husband, Dr. Ed Lippisch, sent me this in the email, because it really brings it home how real this is. This is from MDOC, which is like special updates to physicians across Martin and I believe St. Lucie County. Attention, all physicians and clinicians, starting Monday, July 23rd, patients arriving in the ED, IP, and for certain ambulatory encounters will be asked by nurses and MAs if they have been exposed to water from the St. Lucie River Lagoon. And if so, do they have any symptoms? These questions are in the ED Triage Navigator, the IP Administration Navigator, and the Ambulatory Rooming Navigator. Unbelievable.
Yep.
Long overdue.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is amazing that this is all catching. And for anybody out there listening, this is real. This is happening, and we all need to fight harder. And we have Dr. Edie Witter here today to speak about human health. The first time I met Dr. Witter, I knew I had met somebody very, very special, and somebody who we were very lucky to have in our area. She's an incredible scientist, and she's right here for us. She asked me not to spend too much time introducing her, but I will read this. Dr. Edie Witter graduated from Tufts University, magna cum laude, with a BS in biology from the University of California, Santa Barbara, with a master's and MS in biochemistry from the University of California, Santa Barbara, and also with a PhD in neurobiology in 1982. Please have a round of applause for Dr.
Thank you very much. It's a genuine pleasure to be here. I always enjoy coming down to these meetings to be with so many people that care as much as I do about saving this lagoon. Also makes me feel like I'm coming home Boston, so going through Confusion Circle has that little buzz of fear that we're so used to. Somebody took my notes. I had notes here. I can take it. Sorry, that's okay. So here we go. So I am talking about the human health issue, but I got asked by a couple people to address the septic versus sewer. So I'm going to cover that as well, and because it's directly linked, actually. So we all know what the problems are. Basically, this lagoon has turned into an algae-dominated system, and it's because of nutrient loading. And it's not just down here. Up at the northern end of the lagoon, they've had a brown tide that's still going on. Was responsible for fish kills in 2016 that were just massive. Obviously the blue-green algae that we have down here is of extreme concern. The fact that Martin Memorial Hospital has actually come out and done this is huge. It's powerful in terms of fighting this thing. So I'm going to concentrate there. Blue-green algae is actually a type of bacteria that photosynthesizes. It's called cyanobacteria. And they produce a lot of different toxins. The only one I'm going to talk about today is the one that we're most concerned with right now, which is microcystis. So you should be aware that there are others that we should also be concerned about. But microcystin is the toxin that is produced by Microcystis. Microcystis doesn't always produce it. Sometimes it produces, and we don't really understand what makes the difference. The thing is that is a really nasty little molecule. It is very, very toxic, and it attacks the liver, which is why it's called a hepatotoxin. It causes liver cancer and liver damage, and probably has subclinical effects that we're not even aware of. The only reason we know as much about microcystis as we do is it has both acute and chronic effects. And the acute effects are what made us aware of it in the first place. So the stomach cramps, headaches, dizziness, sore throat, nausea, burning eyes, which I think many of us have experienced. But you really have to experience to appreciate just how nasty it is. So during 2016, I came down a couple of times to just do some testing. I was only exposed, I think, for about 15 minutes. I was sick for a full day afterwards. This is just unbelievably nasty stuff. And at an incredibly low level. So the World Health Organization sets the limit of microcystin in drinking water at 1 part per billion. That's the equivalent of 1 drop in a tanker truck full of water. World Health Organization sets the limit for recreational exposure at 10 parts per billion, which is not very much at all. And you should be aware that microcystin does not denature if you boil it. Boiling doesn't help. And it stays around in the ecosystem for extended periods of time because it does not break down. So you should also be aware of this study, which was done by Ohio State University in 2015, where they looked nationwide at the occurrence of harmful algal blooms and looked for correlations between those blooms and non-alcohol related liver disease. And every place they found a correlation, they put a red spot. Well, we got a big one right there. Now, it's really important to remember that correlation is not causation. This is a statistical analysis, but it is something that we should be aware of and concerned about. And so all of that red spot surrounds the Indian River Lagoon and Lake Okeechobee, the counties around it. It was done county by county, and it's done in the counties around the Indian River Lagoon and Lake Okeechobee. So how is microcystin getting into our food web? I can try. Is that better?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think you need to hold it this one close. Okay. I'm going to look like a rock star.
You are a rock star.
Got it? So one of the most direct ways to get microcystin in your diet is through eating fish from the lagoon. There's this phenomenon called bioaccumulation where the phytoplankton are consumed by plankton, zooplankton, which are then consumed by small fish, which are consumed by bigger fish, which are consumed by game fish. And each time you concentrate the toxin more, so it bioaccumulates. It doesn't dilute, it does the opposite. It concentrates. So very likely that correlation in the Ohio State study was probably from subsistence fishing. We've all come back from the airport at 2 a.m. and seen these people fishing on bridges. They're not recreational fishermen. They're trying to put food on their table. And so that is the most direct route that you could be getting microcystin into your bodies. But unfortunately, there's another way, and that is through irrigation of food crops, because it's been shown that microcystin is taken up by food crops. Now, it isn't concentrated the way it is in the fish, but you've got to realize when you're talking about a product like corn, or some of the other things, sugar that we consume lots of, you could end up with high concentrations in your body over time, over long-term exposure. One of the reasons we're particularly susceptible to this in Florida is because of our irrigation systems. The Army Corps of Engineers came in and dug canals everywhere in order to create land that could be used for agriculture. And those canals are then used to irrigate the crops. But unfortunately, those canals are also apparently a good place to grow microcystis. And we know this because we've had the water quality monitors that Orca developed called Kilroy's in a number of these canals in recent years. We got some state funding to do this. Unfortunately, it's been cut back. But when we had them out there, we were seeing these, what we called cryptic blue-green algae blooms. And these are cryptic in the sense that we were not seeing green slime on the surface, but we have blue-green algae sensors on our Kilroys, and they were showing us blooms. So this is the beginning of this year in the C23 canal, where there was no evidence of algae, but there was a blue-green algae bloom going on, and presumably could have been being used to irrigate crops if irrigation was going on at that time. So if we're looking at sources of the nutrients that may be feeding these blooms, some of the most likely candidates are agriculture, either from crops or livestock, wastewater from septic and sewer, air pollution is actually more than some people realize because we're a coal-burning state. And so some of the nitrogen that's ending up in the system is coming out of the air. Muck can be a major source of nutrients, nitrogen and ammonia in particular, and then non-agricultural runoff when you don't have any kind of storm treatment at all and the water just runs directly off of our lawns and off of our streets directly into the lagoon. All of these things are contributing. So I've been kind of looking at this problem from the 80-20 rule, and according to the 80-20 rule, 20% of our effort generally generates about 80% of the desired outcome. And so I think given limited financing, we need to be figuring out what that 20% of our effort should be. And it may not be the same in different parts of the lagoon. You have to understand we've got different problems in different places. But we were very curious about this issue about septic versus sewer because there's been a lot of arguments back and forth about, converting from septic to sewer is very, very expensive. My knee-jerk reaction when I was first hearing about it was, well, of course we want to convert to sewer. That's logical. But the more I've looked into it, the more I'm tempering that. So we did a study where we looked at communities up in Indian River County that were either all septic or all sewer. And we have found a very surprising result down here, which is we call Area 1, but you probably better know it as Johns Island. And Area 1 has a problem. So this is the microcystin level that we found in our sediment traps at these different locations. And we were very surprised to see such high microcystin levels at Johns Island. It was not what we were expecting. One of the other things that we looked for in our sediment traps was the artificial sweetener sucralose, which is frequently used by a lot of people to indicate that the source is septic. However, there's no septic at Johns Island. There's no chance that there's septic. But there was a lot of sucralose. And so we looked further and found that they were using, as most people are, reuse water to irrigate their lawns and golf courses. And their reuse water was coming from the City of Vero Beach wastewater treatment plant. And when we sampled that, we found that there was 14.9 milligrams per liter of ammonia coming out of that plant. Now, when they put it in the holding pond on Johns Island, you get some denitrification that occurs, and so it dropped by about half, but we're still talking about 6.2 milligrams per liter, which is a fair amount of nitrogen to be spilling onto your yards and golf courses every single day. And we suspect maybe the source of the nutrients that's feeding the microcystin that we're finding in that community. It's still a little surprising that there was as much microcystin there as we found. So if we're looking at this situation of septic versus sewer, one of the things that I think people sometimes lose sight of is they think that once you